channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things. And today I am giving you my July wrap-up, which I filmed a week ago and then didn't edit and then formatted my memory card. So this will be the second time I am filming this, and I'm trying not to be super mad about it, but I am in fact super mad about it. So let's go ahead and talk about the stats before I lose my mind. I read a total of 34 books in July, which was a total of 6,246 pages and 197 hours and 3 minutes worth of audiobooks, which as days is 8 days, 5 hours and 3 minutes. My average pages per day was 105.2, and my average hours per day was 7 hours, 22 minutes, and 13 seconds. My average rating was a 3.5, which isn't very... It's high for me. I feel like I've been wavering around like the 3.2 and 3.4 range, so I think 3.5 is a little bit higher. I think part of that is because I had mostly goodreads, mostly okay reads. Like I had 3-star and up for the majority of the month until I did that TikTok reads thing, which is coming out next week, by the way. I purchased no books, 0 books, so I spent $0. I checked out 19 library books, which saved me a total of $442.58. I think this is the highest that my library savings has been. Part of it is also because this is the most books I've read in a month all year, so. I reread a total of 3 books. The format of the books that I read, 18 of them were audiobooks, 13 of them were ebooks, and 3 of them were physical books. I was thinking about this and I was like, what physical books did I read? My memory is a nightmare. The audience of those books was 25 adult, 9 young adult, and no middle grade or children's books, because if you'll recall, I finished the Witch series, the Witch comics, and I never have to think about them again. Except I will. Every time I think about the fact that I'm not reading them, I'm like, yes. For genres, I read 2 sci-fi, 8 fantasy, 9 romance, 1 historical, 3 thriller, 8 horror, 1 classic, 1 nonfiction, and 1 contemporary, which fits my goal of reading 1 of every genre every month and 1 classic every other month. So those are the stats, those are the numbers, that's what we're working with this past July. I think it was a really solid month for reading. I read some really good books, I read some surprising books. I did a buddy read with David, which I didn't expect to get to do, which was a lot of fun. And it was a fun month for reading, until, I went and did the TikTok romance reads, which we will talk about that in a bit, because 2 of the books ended up on my worst books this month, and I will go on a rant and a rampage about it. So let me talk about my top books. First up, we have The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This is a horror book where a forsaken kind of nun person, they do alchemy, essentially. And the kingdom that they're in has been locked down and is running out of food, and they're trying to figure out how to fix this problem through alchemy. The gods that they worship, kind of show up, and it's very weird, and things go downhill very quickly, and cannibalism is involved, okay? That's really all you... gays and cannibalism. I was really excited to get to read this book because Art had been referring to it for a long time. I know Caitlin had been posting about it a long time. It's on like its 8th reprint. It's done really, really well. Like incredibly well. I love Caitlin's horror in general. I think that she always writes the most insane, fucked up horror that I've ever read in my life. And I really, really enjoy that. I think that's fun. This was no exception. I will say the book does just kind of throw you in and assumes that you're going to figure it out along the way. Obviously I did, but that's a little bit hard. So if that's something that you don't enjoy, you might not enjoy this book because of that. But things eventually clear themselves up logic-wise, that by the end you know what's going on and you're stressed out, okay? Next up, we have A Clash of Steel by C.B. Lee. This was the Treasure Island retelling that my mother recommended to me, and it was genuinely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I do have, I absolutely adore Treasure Planet, so I think that part of the thing for me is that because I love Treasure Planet so much, I inherently loved this retelling. But it is queer, which is great. It is gender swapped, which is also great. The way that they handled the ultimate betrayal that kind of happens in Treasure Island / Treasure Planet was really interesting. I wasn't sure how that was going to be handled, and I really appreciated it and thought it was done well. And overall, it was just a really fun reread for me. And it's also young adult, if I remember correctly. So if you are I would think like 13 and up. I don't remember there being anything particularly graphic in the book. So I think that it would be a really solid book for young adults to read to, like teenagers. I really enjoyed it. And last but not least, on the top books this month, we have Overgrowth by Mira Grant, who is also Shauna McGuire. I love Mira / Shauna's writing. Obviously, you guys know that hopefully you know by now that I'm a very big fan. This was, I think, her first like foray step into the alien invasion genre of sci-fi. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But this book is about a girl who's been saying her whole life that she's part of an alien invasion, and then the alien invasion happens. I thought that it was really unique. I thought that the way that it showed the different ways that people might react to an alien was pretty accurate. I think the timing with illegal aliens, I thought the timing of this was well done. And overall, I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the aliens. I thought that was an interesting concept. I thought that their reason for invading was unique and clear. And by the end of the book, like, I felt very clear about the storyline, which was awesome, because sometimes I get out of those books and I'm like, I don't know what was going on and who wanted what. This was not one of those books. I genuinely understood what was going on and enjoyed it immensely. So, we're going to talk about my least favorite books this month. And I'm going to end up going on a rant, and so I'm just warning you now that I'm going to end up going on a rant. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about those books until the end. We're going to talk about a different book first, and then I'm going to talk about the romance reads that made me want to pull my hair out. Okay, so first up for least favorite books, yeah, I think it's over here. I'm going to talk about Immaculate Conception from Ling Ling Huang, which came in my Pride box from Random House, Penguin Random House. And I'm thinking about this, and yeah, there's some queer pining, but I wouldn't call this a queer book. Anyway, it's Immaculate Conception. I hated this book. I think my review essentially was like, I'm just waiting for something to happen and nothing seems to be happening. And I found that really boring and frustrating. Our characters were interesting, and I think that they could have been more fleshed out and more interesting if there was a plot that was driving them towards anything. But it didn't really feel like there was. Yes, they were moving towards a goal, I guess, but it just felt like fleeting moments in their lives. And I wouldn't personally have classified this as horror in any way, not even sci-fi horror, while there are sci-fi elements to it and horrifying elements to it because of the way that one woman is treating another woman. I would not necessarily classify it as any of those things. I also wouldn't classify it as queer. It is contemporary at best. Female fiction, you know? Whatever you want to call that, literary fiction. I just did not enjoy it. I found the characters really insufferable. The main character, I guess it's a conversation about jealousy in the art world, especially between women. But I wanted to know more about the science. I wanted more of the horror aspects. I wanted to be less inside the head of our main character because I found her insufferable. And there was just so much that I just didn't care about. I found myself so bored that I was desperately wishing, I was like, I should just DNF this because I'm not having a good time. But each time I thought that, I was like, well, maybe it'll get better. Maybe there will be something that will make it better. And then it didn't get better. So here we are. Next up are the two romance reads that I keep hinting at. We've got Happy Place by Emily Henry. Hated this book. I was reading this book at the same time as reading The Butcher and Blackbird. I don't know. Two romance books. And one of them was about serial killers, and the other one was just about regular ass people. And the serial killers communicated better than the regular ass people. Our regular ass people was a brain surgeon and some guy who she was engaged to, and then they called off their engagement. And they didn't tell their best friends. In the whole world, they didn't tell their best friends. They also didn't tell their families. They didn't tell anybody. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I found that incredibly unbelievable. The main character is allegedly in therapy. No, she's not. Or her therapist needs to be fired. Most, if not all of their problems could sum up to, you should have just told this person. And it wasn't like secrets. It wasn't like secret information. It was like, oh yeah, I started apprenticing and learning how to build furniture, and I didn't want to tell you because I was embarrassed. What? You didn't tell your fiance that because you were embarrassed? I felt like you were just too cool and too calm and collected, and it made me feel like you didn't care about anything. So I just didn't want to tell you. Huh? What? I don't think y'all should be together. I know we got our happily ever after at the end of that book, but I simply don't believe you should be together. I think y'all should just suffer alone until you go to therapy. Everybody in that book, every single person in that book was like, oh yeah, I just didn't tell you guys because I didn't want to worry you, or I didn't want to weigh you down, or I didn't want to... Shut up. These are supposed to be your best friends in the whole world. Shut up. These people are my age, if not older. One of them's a brain surgeon. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't. I genuinely, I think that this was bullshit. I don't believe that they didn't tell their friends this. That sounds insane to me. And I found that insufferable. It made it impossible to like the characters. It made it impossible to believe the story. Because I don't, do friendships really work that way? Like, I have friends that, like, we will go months without talking to each other. And then if something happens, like an engagement falling through at 3 a.m., we get a text about it. We get a group chat text about it. Okay? This is a thing that has happened in my real life. I don't believe that there would be no 3 a.m. text about it. Now, granted, we weren't best friends with a guy, but like, even still, you wouldn't text the female best friends who were in the friend group before the boys? I don't believe it. I simply do not believe it. I think that that's bullshit. I think it's not true. So I had issues with that. Next, and this was hands down the worst book that I read this month. I thought it was going to be Happy Place, but then I read this book. And it's called Lights Out by Navessa Allen, and I have two major issues with it, and they are so deeply different from one another. So first off, one of my sillier issues with the book, our male main character is a hacker, like a genius level hacker. Put this up, I don't need it anymore. And I talk about this in the video, so you're gonna hear this rant twice if you watch both videos. I work in tech, and I don't mean like the sales part of tech. I don't mean any of that. I work in the tech side of tech. Do I write lines of code? Generally no, but I have. I have before, when it was needed. I hate doing it, but I have before. Am I a genius level technician? No. Have I worked with genius level technicians? Yes. So, what do I know? I know that you don't just quickly write a line of code, a few lines of code, and it just works. I know that it doesn't work that way. I know that you have to test it. I know that it will not work the first time. It won't work the first time. And if it does, something's wrong. And you won't know until later. It's gonna pull something incorrectly. I also know that you can't just quickly hack someone's TikTok without notifying 1,000,001 systems. I covered up my track. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's not how that works. I referenced the movie Hackers in my video from 1995, I think. Maybe 1999. I don't know. I referenced that movie in my video because that's what I feel like the author watched. I feel like she watched that movie and went, yes, that's how hacking works. When hacking hasn't worked that way in a long time, but also a lot of that wasn't completely realistic. Like, some of it was, but not all of it. I think she just watched that movie and was like, yep, that's how it works. Like, it felt like, you know, people make fun of hacking and like, I'm in. That's what it felt like. And unfortunately, it pulled me out of the story every time. Every time there was something that just was so nonsensical to me, I was like, that doesn't work that way. That simply does not work that way. That is not possible. So I hope this helps. The other thing I didn't like is much more serious than this. So our author includes trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, which is awesome. I think that's great. It even mentions dubious consent, which is, again, great. I love that. It implies a sense of care about your readers. However, our main characters in the book participate in kink, which is fine, go off. But they make it a whole thing about not using safe words. And to me that implies you do not actually care about the safety of your readers, because encouraging that dynamic is unsafe, inherently unsafe. Because also there's a conversation that's like, no safe words, you say stop and I stop. But there's this implication that if that's what happens, one or the other wins, like a manipulation thing. Which means the stop is not really without strings. A safe word is a stop word with no strings. I don't know why I have to become the educator on this, because I complained about this kind of thing in 50 Shades when I read 50 Shades. This is something that is a huge pet peeve of mine, because it's you don't know who's reading your books. And it could be a 20-year-old girl who's never interacted in this world and in this dynamic. And could be wanting to try it. And you could end up putting her in a very dangerous situation of somebody who's going to take advantage of that. Or somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing. Trigger warnings are great. Yes, they imply that you care about your readers. But encouraging this kind of dynamic does the opposite. And I know, authors don't have that much responsibility for their readers. But I think if this is a concept you're going to write about, there is some moral obligation to study it, to understand what it means, to recognize when a dynamic is dangerous in an unsafe and a way that should not be encouraged. I think that should have been noted in the trigger warnings. Hey, I mentioned a completely unsafe kink dynamic that you should not participate in real life. Genuinely, I think that should have been written in the trigger warnings. Because at least then there's some kind of heads up that this is not something you should do in real life. That it works in the book, I guess, but is not something you should do in real life for safety reasons. I want to say that's just my opinion, not to yuck your yum, but I am yucking your yum. It's unsafe to do in real life, so don't do that. I think kink in book is fine. I just think it needs to be written appropriately, you know? Even in dubious situations. I think there should be something, I don't know. Because you know there's a girl out there somewhere that's reading this and is like, I want my boyfriend to do this. You know? Anyway, that's my original filming of this. I was much more heated about it, but I've thought about it for a while and I mostly just hate it. It mostly just irritates me. But that's it. That is the wrap up. So, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Have you read some of the books I enjoyed or didn't enjoy? And what were your thoughts? Do you have thoughts? I would like to hear it. Let me know. I will be reading a bunch of books I hated for another video, so that'll be fun. Hope you guys can look forward to that, because my wrap up is going to be wild on that one. I just know it. But yeah, that's the wrap up. So I will see you guys later this week. I post videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every single week, except the first full week of the month, because taking breaks is important. Yada yada yada. You know the drill. So like I said, see you later. Don't forget to take your meds and drink your water and do something today to take care of yourselves. Okay, thanks. Bye.